Good day, everybody. I hope that you're well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 2 English lesson on regular past tense. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts, grade 2, and then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of regular past tense. All right, so this is a continuation of our previous lesson where we also did regular past tense. And in our previous lesson, we had to identify verbs in the regular past tense, and then we had to say which sentence is in the regular past tense, right? But today we said our chapter is regular past tense, right? Our subject is English Language Arts, grade 2. And today's lesson it is to form and use regular past tense. So in today's lesson we're going to form and use regular past tense. Right? So when it also comes to our past tense, right? Remember the past, it tells us about things that had happened already. So past tense are things that had happened or happened already. Cool. And usually when we even hear about tenses, then tenses will definitely tell us that it's either present tense, past tense, or it is future tense. And in this case, we are focusing on the past tense. It shows us about things that happened already, things that happened in the past. So when it comes to the regular past tense, right? The past tense, it usually tells you about something that has already happened. All right. So we see that the past tense, right? It usually tells us about something that has already happened. And in order for us to form the past tense or for us to form the regular past tense, we need to start with the base form of the verb, right? And usually, so the base form of the verb, and then also it needs to follow specific rules, right? So the regular past tense, in order for us to form the regular past tense, we need to start with the base form of the verb, and then we need to follow these rules. All right, and we're going to follow these rules. So, the first rule it says for most verbs, right, we need to add ed to the base form of the verb. So, the base form is basically just saying that it is your verb, right? Your actual verb in the present tense. And when we add ed to the base form of our verb, right, then let's say, for example, our verb is walk. If our verb is walk, and then we need to add ed to the verb, right, which means that our verb then changes to walk because we added the ed to that specific verb. And if we look at another one, right, it says they walked to school last Friday. So first it went from our base form of our verb is walk, right? And if we add ed to our base form, and then it changes to walked. And if we were to identify that within a sentence, and then we would say, they walked to school last Friday. They walked to school last Friday. All right. And then also, another rule is if the base form ends with e, right? Then we add a d. It's the same like saying that we're going to add ed, but in this cases, let's say our base form already ends in an e, right? Then we just add a d. And if we look at that is our base form, bike is our base form. And we add an E, not even an ED because here we have bike. So all we do is we add a D to that specific verb, and that will basically show that, for example, this is now how it has changed from, um, let's say, the regular past tense or just the regular verb to a regular past tense verb. And if we look at an example or a sentence, we can say, they biked to school last Friday, meaning that they took a bicycle to school. That is what they mean when they say they biked to school last Friday. Biked. So when it comes to a regular past tense, there's rules that you need to follow. And the rules is basically that you just add a D or you add an ED to the specific word in order for it to change to a past tense. And if let's look at a few examples, right? Here are three sentences. And in bracket, we're going to add the correct form of the verb. All right. So now, if we look at our examples, right? Our example says the sisters the sisters name their puppy. I'm gonna do this, then I'm gonna write the answer at the bottom. The sisters name their puppy. We need to change the word in brackets to a past tense verb. And remember we said with our when it comes to our past tense verb, we need to follow the rules, right? And the rule is we add ed to a specific word, or if our base word ends with an e, and then we add a d only. So we add an ed to our base word. All right. So now if we look at our sentence, right, it says my sisters name the new puppy. We now need to change that word name to the past tense. So my sisters name their puppy. Name. So, which means that if our verb ends with an E, and then it means that we're only going to add a D to that specific base word in order for us to change the from in order for it to change to a regular plural or regular past tense. So we're going to say that the sisters named their puppy. Another one is our parents love our old house. Our parents love our old house. We need to change that word. All right. And if we look at the next one, it says our parents love our old house. And if we were to form that regular past tense and follow the rule, and if we were to write that in our regular past tense, and then we would say our parents loved. And once again, we also just add a D. So our parents loved our old house. Loved. And then the last one says, I use my money to buy presents for my friends. I use my money to buy presents for my friends. Use is our base word, right? We now need to change that base word into the past or regular past tense. So I use my money to buy presents for my friends. And if we were to change that word to the regular past tense, right? And then we can say, I used my money to buy presents for my friends, which means that we just added a D because our base word ended with an E. All right. So these are regular past tense, right? And remember, we said with regular past tense, it usually tells us about something that has already happened. With regular past tense, in order for us to form it, we need to start with the base form of the verb, and then we need to follow the rules as follows. For most of our verbs, we add ed to the base form. And we said for most of our verbs, we add ed to the base form and we add d to our base form if the base form ends with an e, right? All right, so now let's go to A plus students. So let's see A, and we're going to form and use regular past tense. And we went over what a verb is, and we said a past tense usually tells us about something that has already happened. And in order for us to form these past tense, we need to start with the base form of the verb. And the base form of the verb is basically just your present tense verb. Your present tense verb. Like for example, walk or bike or smell. That's in the present tense. All right. So we say that the past tense usually tells us about something that has already happened. And in order for us to form the regular past with and start with the base, we need to start with the base form of the verb. And the base form is basically like saying it is the present tense form. Then, in order for us to change that base form, all right, so we say that we add a D to our base word if our verb ends with an E, and we add ed to our base form if the word does not end with an E. All right, so now let's first do our activity and then we're going to our test. It says, in the kitchen, I smell the sponge cake. In the kitchen, I smell the sponge cake. We need to change the word in bracket to our regular past tense. Remember, keeping in mind, smell is our base form. All right, so if we say that in the kitchen, I smell the sponge cake. So we can say, in the kitchen, I smelled the sponge cake. So smelled because we added an ed to that word because it does not end with an e. So smelled is our correct answer. All right, we're looking at the next one. It says the men start the race cars. So we can say the men start the race cars. The men start the race cars. We need to basically change that word into our regular past tense. Start. All right, so we can say the men. Remember, we out in our bracket it is start. That is our base word. So now we can say the men started. Started because we had to add an ed. The race cars. All right. The last one says, I button up my winter coat. I button up my winter coat. We need to complete the sentence with a verb in the past tense. All right, so we will say, I button up my winter coat, right? And when we say I button up my winter coat, that is only the base word. And remember the rule saying we add an ed to show the past tense form. So we can say I buttoned up. So I buttoned up my winter coat. And that is basically our activities. Now we're going on to the test. All right, so now we're going on to our test, right? Where we need to form and use the regular past tense. All right, so we need to complete the sentence with the verb in the past tense. It says the dogs. So it says the dogs bark at the birds outside. So the dogs bark at the birds outside. We need to change that word bark to a past tense. Do we then say the dogs barks at the birds outside or the dogs barked? Option 2 or option 1 at the box outside. We need to choose the correct verb in the past tense. All right, so we can then say the dogs barked. Because remember, we said that we have, like in the bracket, we have our base word. And then in order for us to change it to the past tense, right, we add ed to our word, or we add d depending if the word ends with an e. All right, so we said barked. Well done. So barked is correct. The next one says the men, right? More than one man. The men start the race cause. So we say the men start the race cause. So start. We need to add an e. We need to add either an ed or a d to that word to change the form, the base form. So we then added an ed, and we see that the men started to started the race course. So we can say the teacher line up the children. The teacher line up the children. All right, so we can say teachers. The teachers can say lined up the children, right? Because we added D to our base word. The children seemed happy. So the children seem happy. So we need to choose our correct, we need to change that word seem. We need to change it to the past tense. The children seem happy. Do we have to say option one seems happy or option two seemed happy? I can't see your. All right, so we can say that the children, if we add an ed to our base word, then we say the children seemed happy, right? So well done. The next one says, we pile up our dirty clothes. We pile up our dirty clothes. So we say we pile up our dirty clothes. Pile. So pile is our base word, and if we were to, all right, so we can then say when we remember pile is our base word, and if we were to change that word to our regular past tense, and then we can say we piled, because remember we add an ed to our word to change it to the past tense. So we say we piled up our dirty clothes. All right, so we can say Tis and I. Tis and I, right? It's like two people kick the ball to each other. So we can say Tis and I do when we say kick the ball to each other. Remember, kick, we need to change that word to the regular past tense. And we said with the regular past tense, we basically add. All right, so we say tis and I, and we're adding an ed. So we say kicked the ball to each other. All right, and kicked is correct. So well done. Kicked is correct. And then the last one says the three boys need new bike locks. Need new bike locks. So do we say that the three boys needs new bike locks? Or do we say the three boys needed new bike locks? All right, so if we were to choose the last one, we would say that the three boys needed new bike locks. All right, so that is now correct. So that is the end of our lesson on regular past tense. Remember, we said with regular past tense, we have our verb, and let's say the word set is in the past tense. It tells us what had happened. And when we, for example, change our words, let's just say from a present tense to a past tense, and then the word then changes. It doesn't even really change, but it changes because we add either a D or we add an ED to our specific word, right? Then once we add an ED or D, then the word then changes from a present tense to a past tense. So all we do is the rule that we need to follow is to we add a D if our word ends with an E, and we add an ED to show the regular past tense. All right, so this is the end of our lesson. Thank you very much, grade twos. I really hope that you're going to have a good weekend and a safe weekend further. Goodbye.